Siberia. So we've got a differential spinning of the crust and the mantle.
Well, and then we have the other thing is that the magnetic field strength is declining, and that magnetic field strength, of course, is what affects our magnetosphere and protects us from those that plasma that you're talking about. Our magnetic field strength has declined by 2/3 in the last 2,000 years.
Now, here's the thing: is if it was linear, and you've mentioned this before, it would be about 800 or 900 years to drop to zero. But we don't know at what threshold level that field strength drops before it, quote, flips and reverses.
And as near as I can tell, it never drops to zero. It drops through zero. But what happens is, as previous magnetic reversals, our field strength has dropped to about 15% of normal, and then, boom, we have the reversal.
Right. So, now, it's already happened in the Arctic.
Yes.
It's happened in the Arctic, so it's actually South Pole in the North Arctic Ocean, east of Iceland. Now, the Kilda volcano went off in 1783, and the gas cloud killed people in the British Isles across the North Sea, and also wiped out crops across Europe, which the scientists and historians think may have been one of the geophysical disasters that precipitated the French Revolution.
Yes.
In other words, mass famine across Europe that killed a lot of people.
I agree.
1783. Now, so we've got that event. We've got volcanoes literally every week. There's another 7-point plus earthquake somewhere on the Earth.
Oh, volcanoes right now and earthquake activity are both the worst that they've been since before Christopher Columbus.
Now, when you have a weather system, and again, I was taught this back years ago, you basically have hot air and cold air. Hot air rises, meaning high, and low, L, means the cold air is dropping. And it's basically the Earth's trying to equalize energy up between the hot area and the cold area. The same way as the tectonic plate, when the energy is discharged, it's the Earth's trying to equalize out the energy, and it releases it through a tectonic plate when the energy has to, and it emerges as these earthquake lights before the plate slides, okay? Now, if we know that the sun can cause a solar mass ejection, or just a big sunspot, and those sunspots are directly ping the Earth, if they hit the Earth in a specific angle, direction, and energetic frequency, certain plates are going to slide, okay?
Okay.
So that's not that hard of a leap to think, okay, because there is a direct connection between sunspot activity and major earthquakes.
Well, I certainly think that earthquake and all tectonic activity is driven by electromagnetic forces. Absolutely.
Right. Now, here's where the difference comes. I've been skeptical for years, but I've got all the data now of the South Pole Telescope, the IRAS infrared light telescope of NASA, and now the Chandra telescope that all show that this object that they've been tracking since the early 80s, we'll call it a dwarf star, which is probably 50 times the diameter of the solar system out, returns roughly every 3,600 years. Right? 3,800 years.
Right.
And so,
if that is what we are seeing, if this...
Yeah, I got the data. It's actually, people can go to the links themselves. We also have the data of the collapse of the magnetic field. So that field now has not only reversed in the Antarctic, but there's a giant hole from South Africa where the top research magnetic field center on the planet is in Johannesburg. That magnetic hole is 4 Earth diameters wide when you go 22,000 miles. And 24,000 miles is the Van Allen radiation belt, which is where the bow shock of the Earth's magnetic field holds back the cosmic wind, the X-ray radiation, and the solar radiation that would fry life on Earth.
Well, and when you talk about that, and we had talked about explosions, there's the new Themis satellite array. I think it's 3 different satellites that they have that can now triangulate and take pictures and study the aurora borealis.
Right.
And they're discovering that right at the point where our magnetic sphere meets with the solar wind, there's a bow shock, but they have recorded huge explosions. I don't even have that in my book because they've just learned that in the last year.
Well, let me explain
huge explosions there.
Those explosions are what's called plasma explosions. And I'll explain another. And again, this is classified, so if you don't like hearing classified, this is classified, so you can plug your ears if you don't want to hear it. We have weapon systems that can create a plasma explosion that can be at or greater than 100 megatons instantly over any city on Earth, by creating an interferometry field and creating a plasma heating of the atmosphere to hundreds of millions of degrees. Now, that's really serious, okay? People don't understand that we have these weapons. We're not the only ones, by the way. The Russians also have these weapons. So Russia has them, too. They have a more portable supercapacitor system. Ours is based on HARP-type technology, okay? Now, the danger is they've been playing around. They've also caused things they didn't expect. If you punch holes in the Earth's ozone layer magnetosphere, you can get effects you didn't expect. Okay, you can move the jet stream, you can precipitate storms, you can cause earthquakes, you can do all kinds of bad stuff. So messing around with the Earth, and all these systems are linked. So when the ionosphere, which is the ion sphere around the Earth, it actually can push and move the jet stream around. So here's where the convergence comes. If we have two cycles that happen at the same time, the precession of the equinoxes, which is every 11,500 years, it causes volcanism, earthquakes, and ice ages because of increased rainfall. And we have the convergence of that and a plasma-inducing field from a returning dwarf star every 3,600 years. And the sun is going to reverse its magnetic polarity in 2012. We're facing two converging events that will cause a major increase in superquakes, a major increase in volcanism, and a major increase in the likelihood of a solar mass ejection. And the danger zone comes in, and I'm putting this challenge, though, for people to kind of research and get back to me on this, that we know from the Chandra satellite that this object, which is seen by X-ray satellite, is approaching from the constellation Scorpio below the ecliptic, below the plane of the solar system. If that's correct, again, this is all public data that's now out there, and this is approaching, it means that the danger comes when the Earth is rotating around the sun during the orbit of the sun every year in an angle or arc where we are somewhere in so many degrees to the left or right of that approaching object below the ecliptic, because that's when a solar mass ejection could be particularly dangerous to Earth.
Right. Now, I should explain about the precession of the equinoxes, because I can just hear it coming already, is that precession doesn't take 11,500 years. It takes 25,860 or whatever it is.
Right.
Which is true. But the thing is that our solar system itself also rotates, and so our precession of the equinoxes in relation to the solar system is approximately 23,000 years.
Yeah. So
and what I see happening is that things happen on Earth. Magnetic reversals happen on Earth every 11,500 years. Tectonic activity goes through the roof every 11,500 years.
Right.
So there's two times during that precessionary cycle that I think we align somehow with the solar system that allows all those forces to strike us.
I think you're right on.
You're saying that this might happen at the same time.
When the two events happen at the same time, puts incredibly increased danger. And it tells us the kind of events, and we'll go over some of the specifics in the next segment. Welcome back, and as I tell people, they talk about keep your skepticals on and be skeptical. I tell people, if you're a real scientist, and I want this challenged because I have the data that's in the public domain. So if you go to Clay and Iron, you can look up IRAS, the infrared satellite system. You can look up SOHO. You can look up South Pole Telescope, both the regular information, and I have sources that are classified from SPT. And if you look up the Chandra satellite X-ray data of this approaching object, this is not airy-fairy out there stuff. I mean, I was a skeptic for years. I got Mark Underwood's book, and it looked like, oh, this is more of this 2012 garbage stuff. And I'm not putting a date, by the way, 2012. My guess is these events are going to happen after that. But there's a particular period of danger when the sun is reversing its polar field. And guess when it's going to do that? It's going to do it in 2012. So if you have a polar reversal in the sun's field, and we have already the scientists from NASA and other sun, the heliosphere scientists looking at the sun with the infrared satellites and and there's special telescopes, like in Arizona, there's one the biggest one on Earth that specifically looks at the sun all the time. Sunspot activity.
The one on Kitt Peak?
Kitt Peak, yeah.
Yes.
So what we have is about 5% to 7% of normal sunspot activity now. But they're telling us that the end of solar cycle 24, which is only 2 years away,